All right, happy Sunday morning to you. Just turned this thing on. It was off all night with the breakers thrown for the second night in a row. As soon as this kicks on, I'm going to do a little video here and explain what has been going on. Certainly not an issue from conditioned air. They did a great install. The issue was actually with Huntsville Utilities. So we'll pause here and wait for this thing to come on so you can see how magnificently quiet it is. I had to wait for the thermostat to equalize in the house because when you first turn it on after a power failure, which is essentially what throwing the breaker is from the unit's perspective, there it went. It takes a couple minutes for the thermostat to actually read a correct reading on the house. You know, it turned on initially, it says 59 inside. It's not. It's about 69 or 68, maybe 66, because it was a little chilly last night. So I waited till the thermostat, came up and read closer to in mid 60s, because I don't want the thing to turn on crazy early. I wish it would turn on because the rain's starting again and I don't feel like getting soaked. There it goes. There we go. Do you hear that? Of course you don't. That's how quiet it is. That's the point. It is on. You can see, it might be hard to see, but you can see down there at the bottom, you can see the fan. It's going around, it's doing its thing, it's producing me heat, and the only thing you can hear is the raindrops hitting the neighbor's downspout. That's how great these things are. There we go. Now I hear the compressor. There goes the fan. Now it's spinning faster. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Here comes the air. Now you can hear it. All you hear is that rushing wind. That's the sound of efficient and affordable heat. Oh yeah, it's ramping up fast because it thinks it's colder inside than it actually is. But what I want to show you and explain to you in this video, Conditioned Air Solutions is one of the few companies, if not the only company, that includes this VRM50 system. And I'll talk a little louder since I'm standing right at this unit. But it's a VRM50, so it's basically a Cadillac surge protector. And it will actually, this will take 5 surges before it's basically no good. But you see it shows the actual voltage coming into your house. 246.2 currently. And that will fluctuate, but the thing you have to understand, a normal house is 120/240, right? Double 120 is 240. On install day, I was running about 252, 253. We saw 254 a couple times, and that's unacceptable. Above 252 is not permissible. The utilities are allowed a 5% overage from 120, 240 and a 5% under. So basically you're looking at 114 on the low to 126 on the high. That would give you your 228 to your 252. I was over that. And this unit, these Daikins, because they're inverter drive and they have delicate circuitry in here, they have trip protection at 253, where they will turn themselves off and not run because the voltage is too high and it'll end up frying that board. That board's a $6,000 board, so you don't want that. Let me get out of that Airstream. It's running like crazy. I got heat again. Hallelujah. And so on this thing, they calibrated it twice. 2 different electricians came out from Conditioned Air, and so I knew this was correct. The first time I called the utility company yesterday morning, this had tripped. We had an alarm, and you can see, I'll hit the up arrow here. Code E1, 3 events. And what that's telling you is that this thing tripped 3 times, which means it detected electricity in excess. They had it set for 253 because you want it to turn off. You want that surge protector to trip before this one trips, because this is not designed to do that. It will do it, but it's not designed to do it. So you want that to trip. And it's raining, so I'm going to step in here. you want that surge protector, that VRM50, to trip before the unit does. So that event code of 3 is telling me that 3 times from Friday night when they finished installing the unit and commissioned it until this morning, 3 separate occasions, the utility pumped more than 253 volts to my house. That's a problem. They're legally only allowed to go to 252, okay? The first time I called Huntsville Utilities, they sent a crew out. It was yesterday morning. Conditioned air was also here, just to recalibrate it and make sure that everything was good, which it was. But the crew came out and they tested at my meter base. They tested the transformer box in my front yard, and they tested here at the meter. And their gauges were showing about 250.6, 251.4. I mean, like they got a couple that were right close to 252, but right at the upper limit. Because you got to remember, if you're consistently pumping 251.6 or 251.9 and 252 is your limit, as demand fluctuates on the grid, which is what happens here, as demand fluctuates, you're going to get spikes. And that's what I noticed last night. So Friday night, it tripped. That was the first time I noticed it. 9:46 p.m. on Friday, I got a 1E communications error on the thermostat. And what that was the thermostat losing connection with this outdoor unit because the surge protector had tripped, so this had no power. When I got home at 10:30, I noticed it. So that's when I called conditioned air. We worked out that they didn't need to come out that night. It was warm enough in the house. I didn't need heat, so I wasn't going to drag somebody out of bed at that hour because I just didn't need to. And I like to be respectful of people. So they came out yesterday. Like I said, utility was here. Utility got different readings during the day. But here's what you have to keep in mind. During the day, the usage on the load on the grid is higher. You know, everybody's awake. They've got their stoves on. They're cooking breakfast. They're watching TV. They're making coffee. You know, whatever. They're charging their electric battery box, you know, so that they can go to the store, whatever it may be. So the voltage is going to be lower in the daytime when the load is higher, right? Because there's more people wanting electricity. So last night, at literally a minute off from the last one, like 9:55, it tripped again. And I was like, okay, now I have a pattern. It's tripping around the same time every night. You know, people are going to bed, they're turning their lights off, everything in the house is going dark. The load is dropping on the grid, but the voltage isn't dropping, it's spiking. So that tells me the substation, which our substation is at the end of Steger Road here, right at the end. So I'm not even a mile from the substation. And that tells me that the substation is pushing too much juice out to the house. And like I said, yesterday when the crew came in the morning, they pretty much tried to brush me away. And oh no, you know, look at our meters, it's fine. You know, it's obviously your VRM, it's not calibrated right. We're allowed to pump 252, we're only pumping 251.6. And a conservative person would say, well, you're pumping right at the limit. Why don't you just dial it back just a little bit so that you have a little more cushion on the upper end? But they wouldn't do it. So they basically told me to pound sand, and that was that. So I was like, okay, well, I told him, I said, I'll monitor it again today, which was yesterday, and we'll see if it happens again. Last night it did at 9:55. So I called again. I reported a power outage till I got to the dispatch line, and I told the lady, I said, send another crew out. I said, it just tripped again. Within a minute of when it did yesterday, I said, and the voltage is showing 254 consistently. And the thing you have to remember, the way this works, if it detects above 253 for more than 2 seconds, it'll trip it. And then it starts a 2-minute countdown cycle. And every 2 minutes, it'll look for 2 minutes straight. And if it sees above 253 another time, even for a split second within that 2-minute window, it's gonna stay tripped. It's not gonna turn the unit back on. And this stayed tripped for an hour and a half or longer. Even till the crew was here, it was still tripped, which tells me it was consistently above 253 at least once every 2 minutes for over 2 hours. And that's a problem, right? So when the crew came out last night, they tested the meter base again and did, you know, basically the same process that the first crew did. But I told them, I said, the explanation I got about me being too close to the substation And that's why my voltage is higher, so that the people like the elementary school down the street gets enough power at the end of the run. I said, that's bullcrap. I'm not willing to accept that as an explanation. You can't overjuice my house to make sure that you're not underjuicing somebody else's. You need to have the grid set up that everybody gets the legal amount of electricity and nothing more. And so they came out, 2 guys initially, they tested it. They were showing 251.6. They did see 252.4, which is above the legal limit. That's above their 5% that they're allowed. So that was a high voltage. And then a third guy showed up in one of the big bucket trucks, and he had a different type of meter, and he hooked it up, and all 3 of them, with me standing there, witnessed a surge above 254. Above 254 volts, which would fry that. That's 253 is all that can handle. Sustained 254 would fry that board. And if you didn't have this box, this is what would happen. If that board fried, Daikin would come and they would probably not want to honor the warranty, because it's a $6,000 board. And they would say, well, you don't have a surge protector on this, right? Well, I do. And they only require a basic surge protector on these units. They don't require this fancy VRM that conditioned air does. They go above and beyond by putting that in so you can actually read it. And it logs it. So you can take that log, the 3 codes, and you can then go into the thermostat and look at the 3 codes on the thermostat where it lost communication and have the exact times where that happened. That's your proof, because if this board were to fry, I'm going to take that log and the thermostat log to Huntsville Utilities, and I'm going to say, you're paying for this. You overjuiced my house. Here's the proof. You can't deny it, and now you're paying for the part, not me and not Daikin, because you guys went above what you were legally allowed to do. But the point I make in this is to say, if you are not the squeaky hinge, they will write you off. They have other things to do. You're a complainer. Go away. We don't want to deal with you. That's the treatment I got yesterday morning from the first crew, was basically bug off. We're not dealing with this. Our meters say everything's fine. That wasn't good enough. So I called again and I complained, got a new crew. They witnessed the power surge, and then they went 4 houses up my street and looked at the other transformer boxes and found high voltage at 4 other houses. So now it was confirmed by their own crew that we have high voltage in this community. And as a result, they called a substation guy out, because they don't have adjustable taps in these boxes where you can turn the voltage down at the transformer on the street. Obviously, we have all underground utilities in this community. So it has to be done at the substation. I had to go to bed because I was tired. So I called in this morning to dispatch before I turned the breakers off last night in the panel, because I didn't want this thing sitting out here, testing. Just turn it off, and the house stayed plenty warm for me to sleep. Called dispatch this morning and said, okay, what do the notes say? What did the substation expert find? And she read it off to me and said that they confirmed the high voltage at 4 other houses, and they dialed the regulators back at the substation. So now, as I showed you earlier, you saw 247 on there. That gives us about a 5-volt cushion on the high end, where we won't be tripping that surge protector all the time. But that's super important, folks, not only to be the squeaky hinge. You can't sit there and accept answers that don't sound right, because they will write you off if you let them. You have to be consistent, you have to be on top of it, and you have to be annoying. I hate to say that, but you have to be annoying. Otherwise they're too happy to keep going about their day and ignore you. You're just one fish in the pond, actually one fish in the sea. So you have to be the big fish, and you have to get their attention. And I got their attention, and I wasn't taking no for an answer, and I was right. And I knew I was right, but I had to have actually one of their gauges show that I was right. And now that it did, we're golden. The Daikin is running. It's flying right now. It's making such good heat. I almost can't stand it, because I haven't had heat for a month and a half in my house, thanks to that junk American Standard that came out. So hopefully this has a long life, and I'll cut this video off there, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an explanation. If a HVAC company is trying to sell you variable speed equipment and is not speccing a VRM50, you should probably tell them either A, I want that, or B, choose a different company. My recommendation, go to Conditioned Air Solutions, because they include it with their equipment, especially their variable speed equipment. So hope you all have a great Sunday. Take care.